April has been a month of lots of books, and possibly I've read my favourite book of the year so far. Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be taking you through all the books I've read in April. So this is my April book wrap up. That's a bit of a tongue twister. So yeah, I'm going to take you through the books I've read. Ooh, that always happens. Take you through the books I've read, what I rated them, what I thought of them. So we started April on a high, finishing off The Hero of Ages. So I did read most of this in March, but the end date for finishing was April, so I'm including it in April's. If you haven't watched it already, you can watch the March wrap up where you can see what I read in March, which was pretty much just the Mistborn trilogy, or you could also watch my Mistborn trilogy review, but it does have spoilers in, so only watch that if you've read it. So yeah, the first book was The Hero of Ages. I gave this book a 4.5 because it was literally the 1st of April. I think I finished this, it feels like ages ago, but I really enjoyed the Mistborn trilogy series. Like I say, watch March wrap up because it gives a bit more detail, or my Mistborn trilogy review, but this was just a really nice end to the series. I couldn't put it down, the whole series. This is why I got 4.5. It was a really good read. Ellen Venture will always be the man for me. The end of this book was absolutely insane. I didn't guess the plot twist. The Hero of Ages, the premise of the book is that by the end of the book you figure out who the Hero of Ages is, and did I guess it? No, I did not, which normally I'm quite good at guessing plot twists. So yeah, if you want a book that's really fantasy, has some romance, but has high stakes, intrigue, magical powers, political goings on, and with an absolutely insane end, the Mistborn trilogy is for you. If you have been following any of my channels, you will know that last year I went on a bit of a cowboy romance journey. So after reading the Mistborn trilogy, I thought, what do I need? I've had a really good fantasy few weeks, so it's time for a bit of cowboy romance. So the next book I read was Powerless by Alcie Silver, the first in the Chestnut Spring series. So last year I did read Heartless, which is book 2, and I've got to say, Cade Eaton is the man for me. I think I'll struggle to find a cowboy that will be Cade, in my opinion. So that was book 2. I read them in the wrong order, but Cade was worth reading in the wrong order for. So yeah, the next book I read was Flawless by Alcie Silver. So this is book 1. It's another cowboy romance. The premise is that there's a bull rider and he does something that gets a bad reputation, so his manager gives him a babysitter, and the babysitter is the manager's daughter, and the daughter has to look after him to make sure he has good press for the rest of his bull riding tour. They don't get on to begin with. Do they get on by the end? You can see where it's going, that whole not forbidden romance but snarky banter set in the cowboy scene. He's a bull rider, what's not to love. I rated this 4 stars, so it was a nice palate cleanser after reading Mistborn, which is obviously quite heavy, but it's not Rhett's fault that he's never going to stand up to Cade, in my opinion. Cade is just the better brother, but you know, have you read them? Who's your favourite brother out of all of them? I haven't read this whole series yet. I've read 3 out of the 5, but I've already decided not reading book 4 because the pregnancy trope is not for me, and that's what book 4 is about. So I think I'm going to give that one a miss. So I will read book 5. I'll be saving that one. So yeah, I gave Flawless a 4. I did like it. I liked Rhett. He's really sweet. He's just a genteel cowboy. It's not his fault, but I already knew that Cade was pretty up here for me. So yeah, I read Flawless next. I was going to go on to another book, but then I thought, no, I'm still in my cowboy romance era. So I decided to give Powerless a go. So this is book 3 in the Chestnut Spring series. This follows Jasper Gervais. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, and technically he's not one of the Eton boys, but he's an honorary Eton boy, so he grew up with them. And then it follows Jasper and Sloane. Sloane is cousin to the Etons. They've known each other since they were kids, but she starts the book off engaged to someone else, and he is a ice hockey player. There's always been something there when they were younger. Sloane always fancied Jasper, but he was older than her. Nothing ever happened. And then the premise of this book is that on the day of her wedding she decides not to go through with it, and then Jasper takes her away from the situation, and something happens that means Jasper has to travel across the country to visit his cousin from the Gold Rush Ranch series, and then they take this trip together, and then as they spend more time together, you can see where it's going. So it's not a spoiler to say that pretty much every romance or cowboy romance things, it's happily ever after at the end. But yeah, so this was this book. I don't know what it was. I don't know if I was just bored of reading romance after reading 2 back to back, but I wanted to like it more than I did. I gave it a 3 stars. I just felt like there was so much potential. Jasper was a quiet boy, unassuming, but then when it came to the bedroom, he was all like dominant and like taking control, which I kind of do like, but at the same time it just felt a little bit like it was trying too hard. So yeah, not a bad book, would still recommend. I think 3 is a pretty decent rating. If I ever give a book a 3, I'd be like, that's a 3 for me. I'd recommend it. I wouldn't necessarily reread it. It didn't change my life, but it was a decent enough read. And then as anyone maybe in the booktok community will know, Fearless came out this month by Lauren Roberts, so I wanted to reread Reckless before reading Fearless just to jog my memory. I made the decision not to reread Powerless because I've read it a few times already and familiarity breeds contempt. I didn't want to read it again and then ruin it and think I'd overread it, so I just read Reckless. I read this last year and the first time I read it I gave it 3.5 stars. However, on my reread I marked it down and gave it 3 stars because nothing happens in this book. It's just a repetition of the same things. Payton's on the run, Kai goes after her, he captures her, she manages to escape, he captures her again, they go back to the kingdom. Like, it just feels like nothing happens, and this is like almost 400 pages of nothing happened. And not only is it like a repetition of like he catches her, she escapes, he catches her, he escapes, it's also a repetition of like, oh, we've kissed for the first time, or like we almost kissed but we shouldn't be kissing because we're meant to be enemies. And it took, I don't know, I just feel like, because then that's all they did. Like in Powerless, the slow burn romance was so good, it left me like really wanting more, but then just kind of fizzles out a little bit in this and becomes a little bit cringe. So like, I love Kai in book 1, but in book 2 and 3, I mean, I'll get on to Fearless shortly, but in book 2 and 3 he gave me the ick a little bit. Like, how many times does he want to say my pretty pay? Like, honestly ill. I did a TikTok about it and some people agreed, some people disagreed, but Lauren, you've like ruined Kai. I remember Kai when I read him at the start of 2024. It was my best book of January. I was ready to commit myself to him for the whole year as a book boyfriend, and then reading this I was just like, no, it's not doing anything for me. On to Fearless. I haven't brought myself to do a full YouTube video review of it yet because I just feel like I don't have much to say, and maybe I don't have the most positive things to say about it. So I did do a little spoiler-free YouTube short. It's also on my TikTok channel if you want to check that out. I won't give any spoilers yet because I know people won't have necessarily read this yet, but I gave this a 3.25/3.5, but to be honest, now that I'm talking about it, I would probably give it a 3.25. I do think Fearless was better than Reckless. It had more plot that wasn't just romance, and it was a bit faster paced, so like the pacing was a bit better, there was a lot more plot, but I don't know if I was a bit underwhelmed. Like, there were different plot twists in it, so a reason to read it is for the plot twist, but I do think they were all very guessable, so I guessed every single one except for one. So I got to the end of the book and I pretty much knew where the book was going. By page 80 I'd guessed it. I made a note to myself saying like, this is going to happen, I'm on page 80, and then it did happen. But there was one little plot twist at the end that I thought was quite cool that I didn't see coming, so there is the element of surprise, and maybe if you're not as good at guessing plot twists, it will be a lot of surprise for you. I know I've seen a lot of people say how like gut-wrenching and ruined they are after this book, but I think maybe because I read Reckless before and I was bored of Reckless, I had no emotional connection to the events that happened in this book. Again, Kai's being cringe with his my pretty pay comments as Reckless ends, so this will be a spoiler for Reckless, so turn your ears away if you haven't read Reckless. Reckless ends with Kit proposing to Payton, and then obviously Kai can't be with Payton. I feel like she could have played that up a lot more in this book, like the forbidden romance, the tension there, but that was a miss for me. She didn't play into it as much, but I do think the world building's quite cool. I feel like where this ends, the next book she writes might be within this world but with one of the other kingdoms, so I think that'll be quite interesting to see what she does there. It's a nice end to the trilogy. Like, I'm glad I've read it, I'm glad I've finished it. I appreciate how she managed to tie it all up. Like, it was a nice ending, but I just think how we got from Powerless, which was it's one of my favourite books still, absolutely amazing read, to Fearless. Fearless felt a little bit lacklustre for me. I remember finishing it, and to be honest, I've read books since, like, do you know when you read a book and you're like, oh, it's just going to be on my mind now for ages and ages and ages. I haven't really thought about it much since, to be honest. I think that kind of says it all, but I still love Kai, even if he's a bit icky in book 2 and 3. Hayden's still a good character. There's also a trial trope in this again, which I love the trial trope. I'm really into the trial trope, so that's like fun to read, to see what happens. And they explore a bit of the different kingdoms, not just in their city, they go to some of the other cities within the world, which again, I think Lauren's done that so she can possibly build out another series in one of the other cities with a different queen or whatever. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting. Not a terrible read. I think it's a nice conclusion to the trilogy. It just I haven't really thought about it since. And the series that I will be ending April reading is the Gild series. Possibly Fearless has been left in the dust because I have absolutely been eating this series up. So Gild by Raven Kennedy, if you don't know, is a loose retelling of the King Midas myth, which is Greek mythology. As I harp on about in every video, I did Greek mythology at uni, so anything Greek mythology in a fiction book, I'm going to read it. So King Midas in mythology was the king that could turn anything to gold with the touch of his hand, and then the premise of this book is that it focuses on Auron, who was the golden girl that was turned by King Midas, and kind of like it's from her point of view, and it goes on from there. So I did a short that says why you should read Gild, but to be honest, the series that why you should read Gild is literally why you should read this book, not why you should read the whole series. So again, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I will say this series is like, as I've been reading it, it gives me that same feeling of when I first read A Court of Thorns and Roses. So I've read a lot of the Court of Thorns and Roses rip-offs over the years that just, they're a bit cringe. You can tell it's ripped off, like that series, and like it just doesn't do anything for me. But this series kind of has elements of A Court of Thorns and Roses, but it's like a fresh take on it because it's kind of grounded in that Greek mythology and it's like quite different, but I've been getting the same excitement. So like I would say A Court of Thorns and Roses lovers, you will love this, but like in a fresh way without just reading the same plot again. So the way this book works is that there's kings of each realm. So Auria is the kingdom, and then there's like 6 different sectors. Or King Midas is king of is king of 6th kingdom, and Auron lives with him. She basically gets separated from Midas in book 1 and then goes on this journey. There's pirates. I've never really read a book with pirates before, so that was interesting. And then, as with any good story, it's almost like a love triangle, so I'm going to leave it there. There's a love triangle. One of the commanders from 4th Kingdom who happens to come into it in this book, and yeah, it's really good. So yeah, it's like a Greek mythology retelling. Book 1, I will say, and someone did tell me this, so I gave it more of a chance. Book 1 was a bit boring, so it kind of just sets up the premise of the different kingdoms, Auron as a character, her relationship with Midas, and then the other characters that get brought into it. So this is almost like a prologue to the whole series. So if you read this book and think it's boring, don't write off the series just off this book. I gave this a 3 stars, but knew that I was gonna see what happens. And then Glint is book 2. Again, I gave Glint 3 because it wasn't bad. It was getting me excited for the journey, but again, not a lot happens, or like it was a bit slow in places. Like it took a lot of pages to get anywhere. Like they spend like a good like maybe 100 pages in a war camp, just trudging through the snow, like getting to 4th Kingdom. Like that's where this book kind of takes you, and I was like, that could have been shortened down. I will say both of these books are only like max 400 pages, so for a fantasy book that's quite a small fantasy book, so it's quite nice. But yeah, those both were 3 stars. But let me get on to, I'm not going to waste any more time on Glint. They're good. It sets up the story. You get introduced to Commander Rip at the end of book 1, who is just, he's just a really good character, like, and then he's got his own inner circle, so it kind of mirrors a little bit Rhysand and the inner circle, but like in a fresh way. Like I only draw that comparison because I think it's like a good comparison to make for people who like A Court of Thorns and Roses, but it's nothing similar. Even though there are fae in that world, it's not like the way the fae works in this world, and the way their powers work is quite different to A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is nice. And then book 3 I read on Kindle is called Gleam, and book 3 is, honestly, I almost gave it 6 out of 5. The only reason I didn't give it a 6, so I gave it a 5. The only reason I didn't give it a 6 was because I read most of it over a weekend, and then I had a few days off reading because life got in the way, yawn. So then I kind of lost the pacing of it, and I struggled to get back into it. And then the ending felt a little bit confusing. But was that me because I wasn't in the headspace to read it, or was it the book? So yeah, Gleam. Gleam was honestly such a good read. Like I say, I was going to give it 6, but I gave it a 5-star. So this is my second 5-star read of the year. After the first book I gave 5 stars was The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. So that was the second in the Mistborn trilogy. But I won't lie, like The Well of Ascension was good, but Gleam was better. So I'm happy to announce that I have my favourite book of the year so far, which is Gleam by Raven Kennedy. Honestly, I haven't felt this excited about a book for ages and ages. I can't even think of the last time I was this excited. This book is one of those books that makes me happy that I'm a reader. Like, not to be cringy, but like, do you know when you just want to capture that feeling of like wanting to stay up late to read, or like being at work but needing to be like back in your book, or like not really wanting to do anything else other than read. Like this year I've kind of made, you know, a certain intention that like there is more to life than reading, which there is, but this book made me want to go back on my intention and just like sack everything else off to read. I don't think I've been this into a book since Zodiac Academy last year, where with Zodiac Academy last year I would sack off the gym after work and just sit in my bedroom and read for the rest of the night. So Gleam is honestly, don't give up on Gild. If you find Gild and Glint boring, please, 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 if there's anything I can ask you to do, read until Gleam, and then if after Gleam you're not sold on the series, stop there, because it is a 6-book series, but get to Gleam and I know it will change your mind. So one quote in Gleam that I just loved, and it was like, someone says it, I'm not going to say who says it because again that's a spoiler, but I'm just going to leave you with the quote. So Oren says, if you know what's good for you, you'll leave me alone, and this character says, you are the good for me. And I'm just going to leave it there. So yeah, Gleam was, I'm still thinking about it now, amazing. So then the last book I'm on for April is Glow, which is book 4 in the Gild series. So Gleam unfortunately got bigger. So the first 2 books were like 400 pages. Gleam was 600, and then Glow is 700. Again, I've said this on TikTok, why do fantasy writers insist on making every book in the series longer? I would love a 400-page book series for every book in the series. Like if we all know Sarah J Maas, Kingdom of Ash was 1,000 pages by the end of the series, and some of us just want a little easy fantasy series to get through. So to all my fantasy writers out there, could we please make this happen? So yeah, I'm on Glow. I haven't read that much of it. I think I'm out of the 700 pages. I read a little bit this morning. I think I'm, sorry, we just had an avalanche. Of the like 700 pages, I'm like 170 through, so I don't know what percentage that is, but I'm not a lot of the way through it. So far it feels a little bit slow, like it took 100 pages for this one thing to happen, but that's probably because it's 700 pages and she's like, the pace is a bit slower, but I am enjoying it, so I'm on Glow. Yeah, I'm just excited to see where it goes. I'm definitely going to read the whole series. I can't imagine anything dissuading me off the series now. So yeah, if I can ask you to do one thing from this video, is add the Gild series by Raven Kennedy to your TBR, because it will not disappoint. You will thank me later. So yeah, that is my reading wrap up for April. I read 8 books so far. I'm on book 9. I don't imagine me finishing Glow now before the end of April, because it's quite a big book. I'm on 9 books for April, which is almost double what I read in March. So March was a slow month. I read 4 books in March, but you will know in March I had an awful time with it at the start of March. I just couldn't get into anything I was reading. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed with myself for April. That is my reading wrap up for the month. How many books did you get through in April? What was your favourite book of April? What was your least favourite book of April? For me, favourite is Gleam, Chef's Kiss. Least favourite, Reckless. Won't be reading that again. And yeah, thanks for watching my video. Hope you managed to take away some books to add to your TBR. Like I say, if Gleam isn't on there, we cannot be friends. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.